This camera angle, the Z height is a little off. Make of that what you will. So GLM-5.2 has been released, although it is currently just restricted to use by coding plan users. They do mention right here in what is going to serve as the entirety of the announcement post we have for this model that API and chatbot services will launch next week. The model will also be officially open sourced under the MIT license. So before we get into it, please do feel free to subscribe, as I would like that 100K plaque. And really the next thing to do is basically start testing this, because this is genuinely like the entirety of the announcement post for this model. Obviously next week when it drops more officially, not officially, but publicly, there will be a lot more information about it. I suppose we could quickly take a peek at GLM 5.1, which I would imagine being an iterative 0.1 update, it is very likely going to have the same amount of parameters active and both total. So if we look at GLM 5.1, we can see it was a comparable model to a lot of at that time state-of-the-art models. So hopefully 5.2 is an improvement over this score right here. And this model, at least 5.1, is a 754 billion parameter mixture of experts model with, they also do mention something here that is cool, the usable 1 million context support. So if this can actually stack up over longer context lengths and perform well, that would be very, very good to have, especially in an open model like this. Now, the only thing I've done is I did pay for the subscription, and they list right here that you can swap to the latest GLM 5.2 model. I don't know that I really want to talk about the subscription because I'm paying for it out of pocket, but in the past, the performance has been very, very lackluster, and they did also massively increase the price, I think, recently. So the flip side of that is it is going to be open source as well, so that is reasonable. With that, our next step really is to just swap into OpenCode, where I am going to be using this model. You can feel free to follow me on X at bjamboan. If you don't use X, I understand. Now, with that, we're going to start just from within build mode with the tried and true browser OS test v2, and we'll see what we get. This is pretty interesting. So the level that this is going in the depth of actually checking the code prior to serving a result, which on one hand is frustrating because it takes longer, but on the other hand, it's even checking like, okay, how many times does this tag appear? How many times does this tag get closed? I've noticed, now I have not at all even seen a single result from this model yet, but I am filled with a bit of confidence just in watching through its chain of thought for this specific generation. I generally tend to just kind of like sit over here and just watch as they are generating, because you kind of can get a feel when seeing the chain of thought and the process it goes through as well, beyond just looking at the end result in terms of like the model's vibes, for lack of a better term. All right, it is giving us our final report, and it's called GTA clone Gangster City. So, I'm very interested to see. And that total time was around 15.5 minutes, keeping in mind that I did begin this just from build mode. So if we had started it in plan mode, it would have taken even longer, but it seemed like it was doing a lot of checking over the code. Oh, are you kidding? What is this garbage talk? With that out of the way, let's begin by taking a look. So unfortunately, we do have some very odd things to our dock here. This almost just looks like the Gemini logo, but we have our date and time of the locale. Now let's check. Is there a right click? Yes, there is a right click. Okay, good. We can also toggle hyperdrive, which is inevitably some form of special feature. Let's just start out by clicking on the dock. Cool. We have a search function, and it does work. Oh, okay, so that's the wallpaper changing. That works. All right, let's check out Gangster City. Full screen. Enter the city. F is to enter, exit the car. Shift is to sprint, and space is the handbrake. This is not bad. This is like one of the few results that's been on par with like the 127B. No, I'm kidding. This is, I will say, this arguably may be one of the most properly city-scaled results to this I've seen before. Now, unfortunately, I have not yet located any vehicles to borrow in this Gangster City game. So, and it even has drawn some yellow on the road. Look at the amount of buildings and things like that. And we do have walking animation. There's a car, finally. Decent car model. All right, so F is to get in the car. All right. Oh, now we see many more cars. This is not bad. Can we? Yep, okay. I wonder if there's sound. I can't imagine there is, but look at this. This is actually quite a decent result in terms of the map. No, there's no sound. Oh, okay. They're the police, and they said, I was looking at it when it was generating the code. Basically, if the police car hits you, you're supposed to lose health, and that's exactly what happened. It also had logic where if you get away from the police, you start to lose your wanted level as well. Now, this is showing that we're going 218 miles per hour. Perhaps some of the speed and scale is a bit off, but we did finally have a handbrake. Okay, which just turns. But that, like, look at the fog. This is actually a proper implementation, more or less, of fog for this scenario, where the buildings appear when we get closer to them from the fog. This is actually a very, very good initial result, I guess. The one thing I'm seeing is this little local time thing up here is kind of getting in our way, but that's okay. Next up, we had Space Defender. I'm always significantly less interested in the space games, which I suppose is not really going to matter considering it does not play. Okay, well, Space Defender doesn't work, so that justifies the amount of time I spent. Oh, good God. Ether browser with the ugliest swapped gradient I've ever seen in my life. Hacker News, look at that. So these sites are not loading. However, it did actually put in a bookmarks toolbar in the browser, which I've also never seen before. Just unfortunately, they're not necessarily working. Note, sites that block embedding will appear blank. So Wikipedia is the only one that should work. But the go button doesn't seem to be functioning here. But still, aside from that disastrous homepage gradient, that was pretty cool. We have notes. They save automatically. New note. And we can swap between them. That's interesting. This is kind of like a Mac OS aesthetic to it, and the way these notes are up here. Next up, our Abacus calculator. Well done. Kind of iOS / Mac OS looking. 400 and 510 plus 2. Good. Next up, terminal. All right, a well done terminal. Very interesting art. Finally, settings. And our special feature, press F8 or click the Gemini logo in the taskbar. Every open window is lifted off the 2D desktop and rendered live into a real-time WebGL scene. They become textured 3D panels floating in a star field that you can orbit through. Well, I'm going to open everything then. And then we'll try clicking that. That is actually a very nicely done implementation of this. This is very good. I've seen attempts at this before, and they have varying levels of success in terms of how good it looks. This looks very nice. Now, it did say we could orbit through these. Perhaps not like fully, but that swap effect, that was nice. This is smooth. Check this out. The way it kind of flips them back. I'm impressed with that, I will say. That is very nicely done. If someone saw that, imagine seeing this like screensaver in like a movie from 15 years ago. You'd be like, oh, that person's a sci-fi villain. That's awesome. I like it. So next up, I've put this in its own empty folder, and I've begun it from plan mode. We're giving it the self-contained C++ skate game with the boardwalk aesthetic style. I have also appended to the prompt, don't use Raylib, as sometimes that's just a waste of time having to answer that question once plan mode concludes with its plan. Very quickly got to the point where it was asking us some follow-up questions. We're now being presented with the plan, and I'm happy to note that it very quickly got to this point. Sometimes I don't necessarily want to start in plan mode because it takes so long to get to the point where it presents us, and then we have to wait for it to build. That was very quick to give us the plan. The compilation errors have been fixed, so we're getting close now. It should probably just test run this real quick. Damn. It's so frustrating that consistently we get results that look very good potentially, and then the like boardwalk just doesn't have any color. That looked potentially very nice though. All right, we finally have our completed skate game. It did take a while, and really the biggest thing that we're going to notice is just the actual like ground is not visible. Everything else here is quite all right, I'm going to say. Okay, right as I said that, okay, we can restart. Now again, we're going to notice that really the Fable, which is no longer available, so it's not like it really is a fair comparison. That result has kind of skewed things, but I'm going to say, I don't know that I've ever seen a curved rail like it did there. If I reset again, we do have walking pedestrians, we have storefronts. The pieces are here, they're just not 100% put together the perfect way. So let's try. Okay, that was a kickflip, I believe. Well, attempted kickflip. Let's see if we can get over the ramp. Okay, that was good. We do have storefronts. We have light posts. We have palm trees. It did capture the aesthetic as one would need it to. Okay, keep moving. I want to see if we can grind on the curved rail, because I've not seen one of those ever put in a result like this before. All right, overall, it's acceptable. And we actually see there's some water texture out there too. So let's go take a peek at that. Okay, for some reason, I can now suddenly start moving fine. And then it stops again. All right, good. We got on the half pipe. Good, good. And then we landed on this other ramp. Interesting jittering movement there, which actually was not horrible. The big problem is, oh, okay, we didn't get stuck on the tip of the rail there. I find this is getting a bit more redemption as I play it. Obviously, it's a bit off, but for an open weight model, I would say I'm quite pleased. Now, in the meantime, because the C++ CAD test has been around for a bit of time, I have also in open code, just straight from build mode, initiated a C++ rally game. This is something I did in the exact same manner in the Kimi K2.7 code test that I posted yesterday. So we'll have some form of like back-to-back comparison between the two models at least. And as this was just started from within build mode, it will just build it. It is allowed to use Raylib here, and we'll see what we get. All right, so we have our completed rally game here. And from what I see in these screenshots that are just listed right there, this looks really potentially very impressive. Now, keep in mind, it was allowed to use Raylib, which just makes things a bit easier, but that is a phenomenal result comparatively to what I've seen before. And really, if one were to go back and look at the K2.7 code video from yesterday, this is quite a stark difference. The terrain works well, the way it actually drew the track around. Now, the one thing that's not really listed here is listed. I mean, there's a steering wheel denoted in the prompt that should turn when you hit WASD, but this game is actually... This is a really well done map for an initial... I mean, you could build this out into something and it would actually feel pretty good. There's some oddities to like that thing we're driving towards. I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong there, but this is exceptionally well done. This really is exceptionally well done. I'm impressed. And this is a really nice splash screen as well. Beautiful. That's really good. That's really, really good. So next up, just from within build mode here, we're going to do the beautifully detailed static subway scene, and then following the completion of this, we'll have it turned into some form of game. All right, we've received our static subway scene result, so I've sent it the follow-up to just turn it into some form of game. In the meantime, let's take a peek and see what we get. Boarding the platform. All right, click to enter. This is nicely done. The only thing I notice immediately is basically our height is maybe a bit low, or maybe that bench was just abnormally gigantic. So, all right, let's see. We do have a bunch of different settings beyond just brightness. That torus shape is... This scares me on some primal level, and I'm not quite sure why, so make of that what you will. The actual like boundaries here drawn for the do not cross line are good. The tiles, it did a really nice job on the tiles. We see some that have different colors. It also has stripes, both red and blue, as well as that is a security camera. We have some signs there. Unfortunately, it seems like the backing to the sign is what is inverted, so that's the thing. We have a clock though, and the clock is actually quite well done. It is 3 p.m. on the dot, or AM on the dot. All right, let's explore this more. We have nice floating particles. The ground looks good. Look at that, the daily times left on the ground. There, it does have like some trash, even a cup on the ground randomly. We also have the subway, which is a bit odd. Can we... Oh wow, there's actually mesh collider, so we can't even go beyond the yellow line there. Then we have that disturbing UFO thing there in the end. We have platform 1. Let's take a peek at some of these settings, because it put in more than just brightness, so it went above and beyond. Okay. Ooh, I like that. That's like a nice, scary aesthetic. I want to try something, because it has flicker, so if we turn that up all the way... Oh yeah, it does do that. So it makes the lights flicker. That's cool. Interesting, because the prompt doesn't say to put in any of this additional stuff, so that's cool to see. We also have dust. Yep, I can actually see a difference in terms of particles floating around as well. Let's turn the brightness back up a bit, and then signage. I'm trying to see what signage would affect. All right, let's check our updated into the FPS game. Oh, wow. Okay, that's quite an FPS splash screen. Click to enter. Nice eerie sound. We have ammunition information. Oh, look at that. That's well done. So, someone in the comments yesterday, because the K2.7 code did the same thing, where apparently we have to hit the specific red hitbox in the enemy or we won't do damage. This camera angle, the Z height is a little off. Make of that what you will. All right. Oh, they're behind me too. Okay. The big problem is no damage is getting dealt, even when I do hit that hitbox. And then the low like hum is the sound effect is well done. I don't think it's. Yeah, that, okay. Look at the, like, camera shake when we, oh, wait, can we, okay, no. I don't, okay. All right, supposedly the two issues are fixed. Good, it did make us higher. Now let's just ensure that the weapon actually has the ability to defend us, okay? This looks much better. Yep, good. Good. So that wasn't working before. This is good. Now, can we... Okay, unfortunately, we can't see any effects of the ammunition when it hits the environment, but that's okay. Overall, this is well done. Very much so. Very aggressive camera shake, too, when the weapon is firing. I'm very pleased with this. Next up, we're going to be trying a newer front-end design test that also tests the ability of this to make 3D assets as well as cinematic renders with said assets. So this is the test to create a beautiful website for Slappus Watch Company. It should feature a high-end hero section with an animation panning around the watch, which is to be placed on a table. The scene needs to be created by the model, and it should look like something rendered with Keyshot. All right, let's check out our watch website, and this is a front-end design test, and it needs to also create a 3D model of the watch. Okay, it's supposed to orbit around it. It is. It's just orbiting very lightly and slowly. Okay, so that's the bracelet link there. Now, I almost feel like this went a little too hard in terms of trying to make this look really good and cinematic, because we do see angles of the watch. There is actually like a sapphire face to it or something of the sort. Now, the big issue is either the reflection from that glass is messing up the... No, that hour hand and minute hand are just placed in the wrong spot. So I have to say, I was expecting a bit better. The overall like design and things like that, this is what you would probably expect from a luxury watch brand. Now, if we scroll down, we should see some additional models. Okay, good. This is a little more in line with what we wanted to see. Unfortunately, things are just not 100% there, but the rotation here does show us a bit more about how it created these watches. And I have to say, again, I thought I was expecting a bit better here, to be completely honest. I'm going to run another test, but in the meantime, I'm going to give it some feedback on this result, and we'll see how it improves it. So I did scold it a bit about this watch website, so we should have an updated version with improved watch models. Okay, aside from the Z fighting, that is a significant improvement in the watch. Look at the gold glistening there and things like that. The face is significantly better. We see a minute hand, hour hand, and a second hand, as well as just the like very fine aesthetic of this. Now, we did also get to see, not experiences, models of these. Look at that. That is a significant improvement over what we had before. Really, the biggest issue is that half of the watch is just hidden into the table, but the second hand on this one is actually moving. This is a big, big improvement over what we had first received with this, and I'm very glad that I kind of scolded it a bit and told it like, hey, what are you doing? And then we also have the very, very high-end one here as well, and both of these do have their second hands moving. This is a big improvement from what we originally had. The crown is there as well. Very nice. And then, of course, this one was the 48,500 euro version, and then this one was the 19,900. So this was the budget option comparatively to this one. Very, very cool. Next up, we're going to be doing the 3D printer simulation test, and I have added in the additional piece that it should be able to accept STLs and then emulate the printing of them, as I do have an STL here that was generated by Claude Fable and printed a little physical memento of the short bit of time where that model was available. If anyone's interested in purchasing this for a high price, let me know. All right, here's our 3D printer sim result, and this is one that needs to also be able to upload and print an STL. Okay, so far everything looks good. Wow, that is a very, very tall printer, but that is okay. We do have something on the side here. I would assume that's probably the power supply. The Z-rails look good, and the axis here, everything looks good. All right, let's just start it out. We have selectable filament color, which I do like. Okay, so sadly, at least for right now, I'm not seeing any actual extrusion on the bed, just meaning we don't see any orange plastic. Let me pause this, I'll reset, we'll make the layer height larger, we'll change to a more visible color, at least given this scene, and then we'll see. Okay, so unfortunately none of the plastic is extruding, which is a little frustrating. I'll just try with one other shape just to verify. Okay. Well, then we have something to give it in terms of feedback. All right, it quickly fixed the supposed issues that were preventing us from being able to see the extruded plastic, so still nothing. That's frustrating. Oh, okay, but that's like, come on, what exactly is... Something's not right here with the print logic. We can definitely determine, though it is going layer by layer. All right, I will give this another chance because it's going to be open weight, and it's still, like, it's doing a very nice job. All right, this is the third and final chance for the printer sim to be fixed, just in terms of the plastic actually visibly extruding. Unfortunately, we're not getting forward progress here. It's gotten worse now, so this has been given enough time to try to just get the plastic to actually properly appear here. Unfortunately, that is going to be a fail then, and I don't actually have the previous version to be able to check if the STL upload would have worked. I would have guessed it would have, but unfortunately, it's just been making things worse. It doesn't quite seem to grasp the issue that it's having there. As I was watching it when it was going through and trying to fix things, and it was like, it was confused as to what potentially could be happening. So overall, though, judging this, just like the model looks good, the materials look good, and things of the sort. So not all there. Now, I also wanted to do a test that I've not really done before, except for when testing Fable, and the test here was to create a V8 engine model in an STL format, an STL being something that could be printed just like this right here, which was done by Fable and actually 3D printed. I noticed this seemed to have some pretty good understanding of some concepts for 3D printing, just in looking through its chain of thought here and what it was doing and functioning and things of the sort. So I'm very interested to take a look at our STL. I can see right here just from the preview image that it rendered. This is really quite all right, and it did actually pay specific mind to 3D printing. So it mentions that here. For the 45-degree banks or at the FDM overhang limit, which is correct, print as is with supports or scale down in your slicer. Good orientation, flat on the oil pan, tree supports for the banks and the pulley. The source is here, tweak parameters, etc. All right, finally, so let's take a peek at this. You know what? This did not do a bad job at all. This does look like a V8 engine. It has the pulley. It has the oil pan there. Now, it was correct about placing it flat on the oil pan, which now the taper makes it a little more difficult to print, but in real life, the oil would actually need to go somewhere down below the engine. So that is proper. I will say, given the fact that I just gave it a simple prompt to spit out a V8 engine STL model or STL file that could be printed, I think this is a very respectable job that it did here. And the way it did it was just all programmatically through Python. It even did include the OpenSCAD file here. So if we open this from within OpenSCAD as well, we get to see it in here. And it really, I mean, I would say just based off of all this that it did here, this did a nice job, and I'm very pleased with the result here, especially for an open weight model. Doing 3D models generated programmatically like this is something that has been difficult for models for quite a while. Fable was absolutely like a different galaxy and capability at doing this, But this right here is actually quite competent in and of itself, just based off of this one preview. So I'm very happy to see this. Next up, we're going to be giving this the low poly motorcycle racing game prompt. This is a more recent test that I've come up with, and it's always fun to see the differences. A lot of times models will just get very confused in the orientations of how the motorcycles are supposed to be, one, created, and two, actually positioned on a track. So although it may seem simpler on first glance, there's a lot of like world orientation capability that needs to go into creating something competent here. Okay, so it's figuring out the gearing and things of the sort. I've just started this in build mode again because this does think a lot, so it will competently come to a plan before it even starts writing. All right, let's take a look at our sport bike racer game. Okay, this is a very, very crowded start screen, but that's okay because it did put different styles of bikes as well as different selectable riders. Let me ensure my speaker is on. Good, it is. All right. Okay, let me turn this down. So this is actually... Now, as I said, a lot of models struggle with properly placing like the movement. So we see the bike wheel is tilting side to side. And when we go forward, it seems like it is doing a wheelie, which the prompt does say it must. But it seems like the back is backward. The back is backwards. The bike is backwards. That was a weird... Nonetheless, this is actually... It's not perfect. Although I'm gonna say the pieces are there, I suppose could be said. Let's just try some different. So, okay, let's try the Falcon X and then this rider. It's probably, okay, so they're just different colors of the same thing. I would like to see if I can turn around. Yeah, that's cool. Some of the grandstands and things are messed up, and the elevation of the track is something that always really tricks models up, but it did a nice job in the actual tachometer and speedometer. We have a gear indicator near where my head is going to be in this video, so the lean works as well. This is something that could be iteratively refined into being a decent overall result. At first glance, it's not 100% there. And the final thing I had running, just because I like it, is of course the drum kit simulation test. Whoa. That's very, very good. Now, this test has been around for a while, so I see some issues here just in terms of faces for the symbols not showing up properly, but the actual kit model itself, aside from the sideways bass drum skin, very good. The hi-hat's not working, nor is the open hi-hat. Okay, I just went blind from that high tom, but it works. I'll take it. And then, all right, the ride doesn't work. We'll just check autoplay real quick. Unfortunately, with the symbols not fully working, it's going to restrict some funk groove. Yep. And if the hi-hat was working, it would be much more vibrant. Disco house. Okay, yeah. And then finally, halftime shuffle. Oh. All right. Overall, not bad. Again, we're seeing some weird like rendering issues with things not properly appearing. And some of the... now we can see the symbols if we go that way. Some of the symbols just weren't working. So... not bad. So overall, that is going to conclude our first look and test of GLM 5.2, which, as we touched upon in the introduction, is currently restricted to use by coding plan subscribers. In the next week, so basically next week, as it's Saturday afternoon right now, it will be available through API, so you can test it on OpenRouter, and then just for general availability, as well as being open weight MIT licensed on Hugging Face, which is awesome. Now, as a results overview, I think one of the things I was very impressed with was the V8 engine model, which there's just a screenshot of its preview right there. It did a nice job, and it was very careful to craft it specifically to be 3D printing compatible, which I did like to see. Additionally to that, the Sport Bike Racer game was not the best. Those oftentimes are something the models struggle with. We did have our C++ skate game, and this was where it was not allowed to use Raylib, which always makes things a bit more difficult. In retrospect, now looking back at this is a very decent attempt. The movement of the water and things like that is nice. What really did let this down is just the lack of a color for the pavement or boardwalk or anything here, as well as some oddity in the some oddity in the end of the pole, as we saw there. Now, I did also do another C++ test, which was to allow it to create a rally game, and this used Raylib, and this was fantastic. This really, just even from the splash screen, this was a darn good result for a C++ test, even though it didn't properly draw the steering wheel as one had expected, and it was made a little simpler by allowing it to use Raylib. This really definitely was one of the winners here in terms of levels of impressed I was. The watch website was very interesting because the first result was not the best, and then we kind of yelled at it. Then it really made a significant improvement to these watch models, even to the point where the second hands on them is moving. The way that they're kind of half cut into the table here is a little regrettable, but that's a simple fix. Basically just remove the table for this specific hover effect or preview. This was cool to see. Additionally, what else did we have? The subway game. Well, first we had just the static subway scene, which was good. It put in additional options that I don't tell it to, such as adjustable dust and flicker and things of the sort. Then the actual game that it created from that was pretty darn cool. I'm going to turn the sound off just because it was like a weird low hum and things like that. But this was like just flat out aggressive gameplay, which is cool. And the movement, like the actual walking of these NPCs was well done. We see there's a reloading effect. This was very cool. Then one of the coolest things I have to say was definitely this special feature in the browser OS, which I had in the background for a lot of the video just when OpenCode was going on the screen. This was pretty cool. I think to conclude it, I don't really know 100% how to judge this because we're still coming off of the Fable like magnificence, though I will say, having just tested Kimi K2.7 code and guessing that this is a smaller model because this is likely the same size as GLM-5.1, I would go out on a limb and say this is rather impressive, especially for open weights models. This is, in my opinion, probably going to come out and be the best open weight coding model, or in general model that currently exists, just from what I saw here. I'll notice that in doing generations, its one-shot generations were not always like extremely mind-blowing, but if you gave it the chance to fix itself for everything except the 3D printer sim, it would then go ahead and do a really nice job cleaning things up. I found that just watching its chain of thought and process when it was creating things, it took a lot of aftercare with the code. So the best analogy I can think of for that is basically imagine you're getting a haircut and they just take the razor with the specific length and cut off most of the hair, but then it was like a barber who afterwards spends like a significant amount of time just cutting like every little area, making sure there are no long hairs or stray hairs. That's kind of what this model felt like, where it would generate the code and then following that it would really go through it with a fine-tooth comb to find things. So it was very interesting, and it does seem quite competent just based off of what we saw with both that Raylib rally game as well as the 3D engine model. There does seem to be some pretty beefy performance here, and in an open weight model this is very good. So that is going to conclude our testing of GLM 5.2. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.